Samsung trusted Microsoft for 6 years. That's how long OneDrive was the default backup on every Galaxy phone. And after 6 years of problems, broken promises, and being treated like just another Android OEM, Samsung finally had enough. They're removing OneDrive completely, and Microsoft is about to lose access to over 100 million devices. This is a huge blow to Windows. Here's why Samsung pulled the plug. Let's rewind to 2019. Satya Nadella walks on stage at Samsung's Galaxy Note 10 launch in New York. The crowd erupts. He's there to announce a historic partnership. Microsoft and Samsung are joining forces. It looked like a dream union, two powerhouses finally combining forces to take on Apple. For a moment, it made sense. Samsung had the hardware. Microsoft had the software and cloud infrastructure. Together, they'd create an ecosystem that could compete with Apple's walled garden. OneDrive became the default cloud backup on Galaxy phones. Microsoft Office came preloaded. Teams integration was seamless. Enterprise customers loved it. Microsoft got direct access to 100 million devices. Samsung got world-class cloud services. But here's what Nadella didn't mention on that stage. Microsoft had already started showing their true colors, and Samsung was about to learn a painful lesson about trusting a monopoly. The problem started quietly. At first, they were small frustrations. OneDrive integration wasn't seamless. It was clunky. Users complained about performance. Files would sync at random times, eating up data and battery life. Samsung's own engineers kept finding bugs in the integration that Microsoft was slow to fix. But here's what really bothered Samsung: control. Or rather, the complete lack of it. When you make a partnership like this, you're giving another company a direct pipeline into your users' devices. Every photo a Galaxy user backed up, Microsoft saw. Every file synced, every timestamp, every location data embedded in those photos, Microsoft had it all. And Samsung? They had no visibility into how Microsoft was using that data. Then came the OneDrive controversies. Microsoft started pushing harder and harder to make OneDrive aggressive on Windows. Users reported that files were being moved to the cloud without permission. People opened their computers to find their local files suddenly redirected to OneDrive. Some users even reported files being deleted because they hit OneDrive's storage limits. There were privacy concerns, trust issues, growing backlash, and Samsung watched all of this unfold on Windows. They saw how Microsoft was handling user data, how aggressive they were being, how little they cared about user complaints. They saw a company willing to prioritize profits over user trust. That's when Samsung started to realize something was fundamentally wrong with this partnership. By 2023, Samsung was getting frustrated, really frustrated. Not just at the technical problems, though those were bad, but at the fundamental reality they had surrendered control of their own ecosystem. Samsung had built Samsung Cloud years ago. It was their service, their infrastructure, their relationship with users. And in 2019, in the name of partnership and competition with Apple, they downgraded it. They made it secondary. They let Microsoft's OneDrive be the default. They literally told their own users, use Microsoft's cloud, not ours. And for what? To be treated like a second-class partner? To have Microsoft leverage their platform while offering nothing in return but technical headaches? To watch Microsoft take credit for innovation that Samsung's hardware made possible? Samsung's engineers were building world-class cameras, and Microsoft was getting the glory by offering cloud backup. Samsung was delivering the innovation, but Microsoft was capturing the customer relationship. The real frustration wasn't just about features or technical bugs, it was about power dynamics. Samsung realized they'd made a strategic mistake. They'd given away control of their data strategy to a company that didn't respect them. A company that saw them as just another Android OEM to extract value from. And worse, a company that was actively learning from Samsung's user base to build competing products. Over 6 years, this resentment built. Samsung's executive team watched Microsoft tighten control over Windows, watched them aggressively push OneDrive, watched them use their monopoly position to force services onto users. And Samsung thought, why would we let them do the same thing on our phones? Why give Microsoft a testing ground for predatory behavior? Every time Microsoft experimented with aggressive integration on Windows, Samsung realized they were essentially allowing Microsoft to perfect their techniques on Samsung devices. Meanwhile, Samsung Cloud languished. The team they'd built, the infrastructure they'd invested in, all sitting dormant. Users were being trained to use Microsoft's service instead of Samsung's. Samsung's own employees were frustrated watching their work get sidelined. The company was literally paying to maintain an unused platform while promoting a competitor's product. Then came the revelation that made everything clear. Microsoft was using OneDrive data to train their AI models. Samsung's users' data, their photos, their files, and their personal information were being used to improve Microsoft's AI without explicit consent. Without Samsung even knowing. Without Samsung being able to control it. Microsoft was monetizing Samsung's users without sharing the value back. They were taking Samsung's user base, analyzing their behavior, and using those insights to build Copilot and other AI products that would compete against Samsung's own plans. That was the final straw. That was the moment Samsung's board decided never again. In early 2025, Samsung made a decision that shocked the tech industry. They would remove OneDrive integration from Galaxy phones completely. Not phase it out gradually, not keep it as an option. Remove it entirely. Android Authority discovered code in Samsung's One UI 8.5 that revealed the plan. Buried deep in the Gallery app were strings of text, sync with OneDrive ending soon. Notifications prepared for users. Download your files before the cutoff. April 11, 2026. That's when OneDrive dies on Samsung devices. After 6 years of partnership, it's over. The message was clear. We're done. We trusted you. You let us down. We're taking our ecosystem back. Samsung Cloud is coming back as the default. And this time, it's non-negotiable. Samsung owns the data. Samsung controls the experience. Samsung isn't letting another tech giant use their users' information as a bargaining chip. Let's be direct about what this means for Microsoft. This is a huge blow to Windows. Absolutely massive. Microsoft didn't just lose OneDrive integration on Galaxy phones. They lost direct access to 100 million devices. They lost the ability to harvest user data from those devices. They lost the default positioning that made OneDrive seem like the natural choice. They lost enterprise standardization around Microsoft services on Android. Think about the numbers. Over 6 years, Samsung Galaxy phones have been the primary distribution channel for OneDrive outside of Windows. Millions of people used OneDrive because it came by default on their Samsung phone. They got comfortable with it, they paid for storage, they built workflows around it, and now, all of that goes away. Microsoft is losing direct access to the habits and data patterns of 100 million users. They're losing the enterprise contracts that bundled Microsoft services across iPhones, iPads, and Samsung tablets. Organizations that standardized on Microsoft services across all platforms are now facing a scramble to find alternatives for Samsung devices. But here's what really hurts. Microsoft can't do anything about it. Samsung owns the ecosystem. Microsoft has no leverage. They can't force OneDrive back onto Galaxy phones. They can't punish Samsung without also hurting their Windows business. They're caught. And it gets worse for Microsoft. If Samsung successfully replaces OneDrive with Samsung Cloud, and users actually switch without major friction, it proves something dangerous. Microsoft services aren't sticky because they're good. They're sticky because Microsoft uses monopoly power to force them onto devices. Take away that forced integration, and users will switch. For Windows, this sends a message. If you're relying on forcing your services onto other companies' devices, you're building on sand. One day, those companies get strong enough to push back. One day, the partnership ends. One day, you lose everything. Samsung didn't just leave Microsoft. Samsung is showing every other tech company that it's possible to escape Microsoft's grip. And that terrifies Microsoft. What really happened here is this. Samsung got tired of being treated like a vassal state. They got tired of giving control to Microsoft while getting nothing but technical headaches in return. They got tired of watching their own users' data flow to Microsoft. They got tired of having zero say in how OneDrive was integrated, updated, or used. This wasn't a business decision. This was a power move. Samsung is saying, we built an ecosystem, we own it, and we're not letting anyone, not Microsoft, not Google, not anyone, control our relationship with our users. And Microsoft is realizing that the days of forcing services onto other people's platforms are ending. Not slowly, not gradually, but decisively. When a company as large and as confident as Samsung says no, Microsoft has to listen. This is also a warning to every company that's been pushing their services too aggressively. If you push too hard, if you extract too much value, if you don't respect your partners, Eventually, they'll push back. And when they do, you lose everything. If you use a Samsung Galaxy phone and you've been backing up to OneDrive, get ready for a change. April 11, 2026 is coming. You need to migrate your data. Thousands of gigabytes of photos and files won't automatically transfer. You'll have to move them manually or lose them. If you work in IT, this is a nightmare. You standardized on Microsoft services across all platforms. Now you're scrambling to create new backup strategies for Samsung devices. You're managing two different systems. You're training users on new platforms. You're dealing with the fallout. If you believed in the Microsoft-Samsung partnership, time to accept reality. It's dead. Partnerships don't survive when one partner treats the other like a distribution channel instead of a true collaborator. And if you're watching from Microsoft's perspective, you're probably panicking, because this proves something you've been afraid to admit. Your services aren't strong enough to hold partners on merit alone. You need monopoly power. And monopoly power isn't forever. Samsung's move won't stay isolated. Other Android manufacturers are watching. If Samsung can successfully ditch Microsoft and replace OneDrive with their own service, why can't they? Why give Microsoft access to billions of devices when you could control that data yourself? Expect more partnerships to fracture. Expect Microsoft to lose distribution on more devices. Expect other companies to realize what Samsung just figured out. Sometimes you have to take your ecosystem back. Microsoft is going to have to change how they approach partnerships. They can't use monopoly power to force services anymore. They'll have to build services so good that companies want to include them, not services they're forced to include. The era of forced integration is ending. The era where big tech companies extract value without respecting their partners is ending. Here's what you need to understand. This isn't just about OneDrive. This isn't just about cloud storage. This is about power. This is about Samsung finally saying enough to a company that had taken them for granted. This is about a company reclaiming control of its own destiny. And it's a huge blow to Windows and Microsoft. Not because OneDrive is going away, but because it proves that even the biggest, most powerful tech companies aren't immune to the consequences of treating their partners poorly. Samsung waited 6 years, but they finally ditched Microsoft, and they did it decisively. That's the real story here. If you found this useful, smash that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment. Are you a Samsung user who's going to be affected by this? What's your frustration with Microsoft's service integration? Let me know. See you in the next one.